Good morning, everyone, and welcome to First Things First on a lovely Tuesday morning, wherever you are. I'm sure it's lovely. Jenna Wolfe, Nick Wright, Kevin Wilds, Brian Westbrook is with us. We got a lot going on this morning. Cowboys are adding an interesting little wrinkle to their offense this season. The latest NFL insider to say Cam Newton is not a lock to start for the Patriots week 1. And we're giving out NBA awards this morning. Well, Nick gives, we receive. All ahead on First Things First. But we got to start this morning with the defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs, who appear to be convinced they'll be doing a lot of defending for years to come. Chiefs locking up Patrick Mahomes and Chris Jones for the long haul this offseason, prompting both to throw around the word that for 20 years has been reserved only for the Patriots. And that word, my friends, is dynasty. Apparently, it's got a nice ring to it, according to some Chiefs players. Tyreek Hill chiming in with this: I'm proud of just the Chiefs in general for getting all these deals done, man, because they understand right now is our time. Like, this is our window to be great for us to build. Here's that word again, dynasty. Chris Jones followed up with, quote, this is only the beginning. Be prepared to have another parade and another parade and another parade. I've already lost count. We're going to make sure we bring not one, not two, not three, not 4 guys, but 5+ rings to Kansas City. It's been 50 years of waiting, but the wait is over now. It's time to create, here it is again, a dynasty.
Oh, goodness.
Nick, I got to ask you, you're a resident Chiefs fan. You worried at all about all this dynasty talk? I mean, this group of guys, they've only won 1 so far.
No, I'm not worried about it. I'm encouraged by it. And listen, the table is obviously set perfectly for the Chiefs. And Jenna, you're right. They've only won 1. Mahomes has only been the starter for 2 years. The first year he was the starter. If the Patriots call heads instead of tails and the coin toss in the AFC Championship game overtime, then the Chiefs have 2 Super Bowls. But the Patriots called the coin toss right, so they only have 1 Super Bowl. But I think the reason people are hesitant to talk dynasty is because people think they are rare in the NFL. They're not. Every decade the NFL has existed, we have had a dynasty. In the 60s, it was the Green Bay Packers. They won 3 of them. In the 70s, it was the Pittsburgh Steelers. They won 4 in 6 years. In the 80s, it was the San Francisco 49ers. They won 4 Super Bowls. In the 90s, it was the Dallas Cowboys. In the 2000s, it was the Patriots. And in the 2010s, it was the Patriots. And in the midst of that, we've had some teams, if you would call them maybe mini dynasties. The Broncos went back-to-back. The Bills obviously went to 4 consecutive Super Bowls. Brian Westbrook's Eagles went to 4 consecutive conference championship games. Now, those weren't dynasties, but if you have a great team, periods of sustained success happen in the NFL, and every decade, NFL history has a dynasty. So how do you set it up? Well, first thing you do is you make sure your young core is totally intact. Check. The Chiefs have done that, as you can see. Next thing you do, you make sure you are set at the 2 most important positions in the sport, quarterback and coach. And the next thing you do is you win the games you're supposed to win. Patrick Mahomes in his career, 19-1 against teams below 500. And if you can dominate your division, all the better. The Chiefs, even predating Mahomes, Brian, over the last 6 years, they're 27-3 against the woebegone AFC West. So if you could have every single piece in place for a dynasty, the Chiefs do. Jenna's right. They have only won 1, but they've only been together for 2 years. So, yeah, Brian, I'm not concerned about this at all. I think it is exactly what they should be focused on.
You know, and I'm not concerned either. And I think you're right. They have all the pieces to build a dynasty, which they've already kind of have built the team to make that dynasty and sustain it. And, you know, I know that there's a lot of talk about dynasty, and I don't have a problem with players talking about dynasty or winning. To me, it's not the talk around dynasty or winning that makes you not be able to accomplish that. It's your lack of preparation. And then when you go out there, you overlook opponents. That's why you can't achieve the dynasties. And so for me, when you have the best player in football, Patrick Mahomes, you have a great coach in Andy Reid, you always will have an opportunity for an extended period of winning, which obviously a dynasty is. I think they also have the Chiefs also have another advantage that some other teams that had won the Super Bowl just don't have. And I understand what happens after you win the Super Bowl. You go on your talk shows, you do a lot of appearances, all those different things amidst time where you're partying and enjoying yourself with your friends and things like that. Unfortunately, because of the coronavirus, the Chiefs, they enjoyed themselves as far as in February. But then when March hit and then after that April, they were at home quarantining like everyone else. And so that made the process of slowing down the all-season activities happen a little bit quicker for the Chiefs. I think that's to their advantage. Now they're starting to think about football. The other part is teams that are usually winners like the Chiefs were last year, other teams are in their building, in their facility, trying to figure out ways to beat them. And again, because of the coronavirus, those teams weren't able to be in their facilities trying to figure out ways. So there's no advantage for the other teams because they're at the same disadvantage as the Chiefs just getting into their facilities in the next week or so. And so to me, all things are lining up for the Chiefs to have that dynasty. And the talk, to me, Kevin, means absolutely nothing. You have to go out there and prepare yourself and then not overlook opponents. And if you can do that when you have the best player in the NFL, I think you can win a lot of games.
Brian, do you believe in the term that Nick just invented that is in no dictionary? I don't even know if it has a Wikipedia page, or if you Google it, you may get 0 hits. Mini dynasty. Do you agree with that? That term should be in existence.
I like the term only because around that phrase, he mentioned the Eagles that went to a bunch of NFC Championship games, of course, a Super Bowl appearance. I kind of appreciated that, but I'm not sure that there's a such thing as a mini dynasty. Either you have a dynasty or you don't.
That's exactly what I'm saying. He gave the Bills a mini dynasty, and I'm like, I think he's trying to butter Brian up, trying to say mini dynasty. Look, Jenna, we talked a lot about Super Bowl hangover. This is the Super Bowl still a little bit drunk from the parade. I'm all for the Chiefs. I like the Chiefs, Nick, and I hate to be on the other side of this, but you guys have gone way too bonkers with this. You won 1 Super Bowl in 50 years. Bill Belichick still has the dynasty. Oh, we're going to take a little walk down memory lane. The dynasty is just starting. It's just starting. You got 1 Super Bowl, this just starting. Then you move on. We got Mahomes said we're chasing a dynasty. So Mahomes doesn't necessarily think you're starting it. He's sort of still going after it. Then you got the Chiefs team, the team itself saying, let's go build. They're building, and Mahomes looks like he's in the Game of Thrones. And then, of course, we have, boom, Chris Jones, let's go. The dynasty continues. We already have a dynasty, and this is just continuing since he got his big contract. Look, Bill Belichick's been to 9 Super Bowls. He won 6 of them. We've got the AFC East 16 of the last 17 years. You have a long way to go to have a dynasty. And I know you're saying, like, no, Wilds, this is the beginning. This is the beginning. You got to speak it into existence. You know what, Nick? Yeah. I'm not even mad. Remember when we were talking about Cam Newton and the GMs should sign him because that's what you should do what you want your opponents not to do. Correct? It's a little bit of reverse engineering. Yeah. I would be scared if the Chiefs said, we're not talking about dynasties. We're not talking about next year. We're talking about 1 game at a time, and that's the only thing we're focused on. I say, oh, boy, that sounds like a dynasty in the making. But talking about dynasties, not going to happen.
Okay. All right. Real quick. Jenna, Wilds is saying that. Why? Because what team would never talk about dynasties? What team that we always compare everyone to would never say the things the Chiefs are saying? And that's the critique here. What team is that, Jenna?
The New England Patriots.
Right. And so that is exactly correct. And I knew you'd say it with the Patriots newspaper right over your shoulder. Diehard Patriot fan, surrounded by Patriot fans.
Coincidence.
Thank God Brian is here. I want to say something about this whole idea that in order to have a dynasty in the NFL, you have to do things the Patriot way. Because the Patriot way, the first step of the Patriot way is acquire the greatest quarterback ever. By the way, the Chiefs might have done that too. The second step of the Patriot way is pair him with one of, if not the greatest coach ever. Well, Andy Reid's not the greatest coach ever, but he's certainly one of the greatest coaches in the game. Everything from after that is just what the Patriots have done, and so we assign it greatness. Nobody says, listen, if you want to have a dynasty, you need to say one game at a time, on to Cincinnati, and every 3 or 4 years have a massive cheating scandal. You don't say that, but that's part of the Patriot way. Hell, they just got dinged a few weeks ago. Nobody talks about it. We don't say part of the Patriot way is you make sure you churn players in and out of that you never overpay, and try to have a key contributor in Super Bowl years spend the first 4 games of the season suspended for steroids, a la Rob Ninkovich or Rodney Harrison or Julian Edelman recently. And by the way, Rob Ninkovich, I saw what you said about Patrick Mahomes. That's why I reminded the audience about your steroid suspension. So we can't just take the things with the Patriot way that we say worked and say everyone should do it. It worked for them, and I'm happy it worked for them. The Chiefs, on the other hand, are making sure nobody on this team is going to get fat and happy. Nobody on this team is going to say, we won, now we can rest on our laurels, because they are setting the standard so that one Super Bowl at this point would be a failure. In fact, just winning one more would be a disappointment. As someone who's rooted for this team his whole life, that, Jenna, thrills me.
Get back to the NBA's MVP race. The league told teams Friday that none of the remaining 8 games inside the Orlando bubble will count toward individual regular season honors. Or, in other words, the reason Nick Wright spent his entire weekend indoors. Nick doesn't get a vote, America, but it did not stop him from picking his own awards this season. So, Nick, sorry to throw shade. Facts. Here we go. Your guy LeBron said, quote, as far as the MVP race, I've shown what I'm capable of doing. Let's start with your MVP ballot. Who you got?
Well, Jenna, you really just soured my whole mood going into this segment. Broussard's going to fix the fact that I don't have a vote, by the way. It's just a multi-year oversight by my friends at the NBA. I know it. But we were tracking the MVP race like a horse race throughout the season, and Giannis led the whole way. Now, right before the shutdown, LeBron had gained significant ground, but Giannis was still the leader, and now the season freezes in time there. Giannis deserves this award. LeBron, there's no question. Giannis's team has the best record. Giannis is averaging 30 points in 30 minutes. There's no question about it. LeBron will finish second. He finished second in year 3 in the NBA. He's now going to finish second in year 17. This will be his 8th first or second place finish in his career. He should have 6 first place finishes, but that's neither here nor there. Chris Paul might be the most noteworthy on this. Look at what the Thunder are in the standings. Look at what they've been. I think they are 29-10 in their last 39. He has been the best clutch player in the NBA for a team that at the break, some people thought they might trade away Gallo and tank. Luka, we've become numb to what he's doing, 29-9-9 in year 2. And James Harden, for all the criticism he gets, he's just averaging a hair under 35 a game for a team that was the 3 seed with 10 days prior to the restart before they had a bad week and a half. So that's your top 5 of the MVP ballot. Wilds, my guess is people are going to take the most issue with Chris Paul, but I firmly believe he should be 3rd place on the MVP ballot.
No, I like Chris Paul there. I think that's a great call by you. Well, this weekend, Frank Vogel said LeBron was the MVP. Broussard, do you think Frank Vogel actually believes that, or is that just a little bit of job security?
That's job security. Look, LeBron's been tremendous, but it's cut and dried. It's Giannis. Giannis's regular numbers, points, rebounds, field goal percentage are better. His analytical numbers are better. His PER, only Wilt Chamberlain, Michael Jordan, and LeBron once have ever had a better PER than what Giannis is doing now. It's more than 3 points higher than anybody else in the league. He's got the best record in the league for his team without a second superstar. Nobody close to an Anthony Davis. And he's, like Nick said, he could be Defensive Player of the Year. He's arguably the best defender in the league. So it's Giannis. I give Nick credit for being objective. Chris Paul, Chris has been great. I don't have him in my top 5 MVPs, though. I can't go there, but he's been terrific. You're reaching a little bit for that. I see why you don't have a vote.
I just wanted to say, Nick, No. Broussard, this is what I feel like I came in too hot on Nick without getting a vote. I think I'm going to back off from that now, and we're just going to ease right into your next award, which is the All-NBA teams. Take it away, my friend.
This is really gone off the wall. Really not the way I wanted
Those were
it to go.
apologies.
No,
That
Jenna, I
was sincere.
appreciate you. No, I know you're sincere, but Broussard, who actually does have a vote just because he's covered the league for 25 years and used to work at the New York Times,
And
he
Eric
all of a sudden
quotes
gets a
Broussard.
vote. He has more credibility than me. I don't know in what world that's true. All right, now All-NBA team, which is actually going to be probably a little more controversial than the MVP ballot, which I think most people are going to have at least 4 of those same top 5. First team All-NBA is very simple. As long as you put Anthony Davis at center. Now, while I don't have a ballot, I have seen the ballot, and Anthony Davis is listed as forward or center. I put him at center because then you can get the guys who have had the 5 best seasons in the league. You'll see, maybe some people will say, wait, Chris Paul's third on your MVP ballot, but not first team All-NBA. He's been more valuable than Harden and Doncic, but I think those guys' numbers are so overwhelming, they should be first team. Second team, to me, is also pretty straightforward. You've got to have Chris Paul on your second team All-NBA to go along with. Kawhi gets there because he was great when he decided to play. Pascal Siakam, he's the best player on the 2 seed in the East. Jokic, after a really slow, out-of-shape start, was great the last few months. And Russ, everyone acts like Russ has fallen off a cliff. All he's doing is giving you 29, 9, and 8 a night as the second best player on a contender. And third team, hey, Celtic fans, for everyone that says I hate Jason Tatum, had I put Anthony Davis as a forward, Jason Tatum would not have made this list. But I put Anthony Davis as a center, allows Tatum to get on. Chris Middleton, I know Broussard takes every shot to remind America the Bucks don't have a second star. All he's doing is averaging 20-plus points on 50, 40, 90. The list of people to do that, 20 points on 50, 40, 90. Larry Bird, Dirk Nowitzki, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, and Chris Middleton. Dame's been sensational, arguably statistically best year of his career. Ben Simmons is going to come close to winning Defensive Player of the Year. He can guard all 5 spots. And Bam Adebayo, to me, because Embiid missed 20 games, has had the 3rd best center of any big man, ahead of Gobert and ahead of Joel Embiid. Broussard, I know you've got a ton of issue with all of this, most notably your deep personal dislike for Chris Middleton. So go ahead, sir. Tear me apart here.
First of all, I love Chris Middleton. Shout out, props to Chris.
You love him.
And I give it to you.
There we
After
go.
really looking at it, there seems to be a dearth of forwards in the league that deserve this award. So I did have him on my third team. I'll give you that. We talked about it yesterday. I didn't, but when I looked at it, he's fine on the third team. Now, since your ballot is unofficial, I'm going to mess around with the position. Let's face it. Who was a point guard this year? LeBron James. He played point guard the entire season. I know they probably got him listed as a forward, like you said, but you conveniently put LeBron at forward so you could leave Kawhi off. That's a subtle shot. Most of America probably didn't pick it up, but I know that was all about making Kawhi second team and save all the comments about how many games he missed. Luka missed just as many games as Kawhi. So what I've done is I've got LeBron at point on my first team, Harden at the 2, and then Kawhi in at the forward, and Luka moves down to the second team. All right, now, I've got Dame Lillard. You mentioned it. He's averaging, 29 points a game, 7 assists. He's playing tremendously. I'm not going to punish him because the team has struggled. I put Dame on my second team guard with Luka, and I'm going with Jason Tatum over Siakam. I love Pascal. And here's the shocker, Nick. Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler has been tremendous. I'm putting him as a forward on my second team.
Jimmy, can I tell you if Butler's good. The just missed would be Butler, Kyle Lowry, and Bradley Beal. Beal's team is 14 games under 500, so I couldn't include him. But no, I think Jimmy Butler, like, a Heat had to be on there. So I don't know. I don't think you're crazy for Jimmy Butler at all. I put Bam in that spot. You're messing with the positions to create, you know, you're putting LeBron here. And by the way, if there was an extra forward spot, the next person on my list was Siakam. Kawhi was the fourth best forward in basketball this year. So just so you know, yeah, and well, Anthony Davis too. So I guess fifth. But I mean, that's just how I saw it. Because maybe I just was tuned in too often when Kawhi was resting. Maybe that's what it was. I don't know. It's just
I'm going to bat for you. You know I'm going to bat for you with the league office to get you a vote. But this logic you're spewing is not going to help. This is national TV, Nick. Believe me, this is not helping you. I've got, and center, you got Bam on the third team. I'm going with Rudy Gobert. Bam has been great. I don't have too much of a problem with that, but I'd go with Gobert. And instead of Ben Simmons, I got Chris Paul and Westbrook, my third team guard.
Okay.
Chris Paul and Westbrook.
That's fair.
You know, Broussard, I was going to ask you if he's helping his cause or hurting his cause, but you know what? I'm not going to ask. I feel like I know. All right, Nick, we got your MVP awards. We got your All-NBA teams. Talk us through the rest of your awards.
Yep. So we'll go quickly on these right to left, actually, instead of left to right. Nick Nurse has to be your coach of the year, doing what he's done despite the departure of Kawhi Leonard. Most improved player. Now, this is controversial. You could argue Bam, you could argue Tatum. Luka took a leap from excellent player to superstar. Some people are going to say if you're a top 5 pick, year 1 to year 2, you're supposed to improve. 6th man of the year came down to Dennis Schroeder or Montrezl Harrell. I leaned Harrell because he had such a heavy workload, especially given the fact the stars on his team don't often play, so he gets elevated in importance. Ja Morant's your unanimous rookie of the year. And my commitment to take integrity makes Giannis the defensive player of the year. I picked Anthony Davis before the year. I'd love to give it to Anthony Davis, but Wilds, Giannis, the Bucks defense has been demonstrably the best defense in all of basketball. Giannis is the biggest reason for that. So Giannis will join Akeem Olajuwon, Michael Jordan, and LeBron James as the only players to win Defensive Player of the Year and MVP in the same season. Before you send tweets, you're going to say LeBron never did that. Well, technically he never did that, but in 2013, he should have done it. He finished second. The guy who won it, Mark Gasol, wasn't even first-team All-NBA. Another flaw in the voting process that wouldn't happen if I had a vote. So while LeBron technically didn't do it in the same year, he actually kind of did. Giannis joins that list. It is a sensational year from Giannis, capped off by winning both awards, Wilds.
Okay, Akeem also finals MVP that year. Nick, I like this list. Part of me, Broussard, let's just be 100% honest here. This feels like Nick auditioning for the league office to get a vote. He's like, look, I'm not in LeBron's camp. I'm trying to be as objective as possible. Are you buying that Nick really believes that this is the list, Broussard?
I do believe he thinks this is the list, but for him to state unequivocally that LeBron has won MVP and Defensive Player of the Year in the same season, what? My head is spinning. I mean, what are you? He didn't. It's official. He did not. I don't know how you say that, Nick, but most improved. I think Bam Adebayo probably gets the most improved player. And then Montrezl Harrell, great player, great 6-man, but is he even the best 6-man on their team? I mean, Lou Williams will make an argument there. And Dennis Schroeder, I think Dennis Schroeder could end up getting this award this year.
Schroeder might win it, no question. Now, just quickly, as far as your what did or didn't happen, you know what I mean? I guess this is, you know, you have your own alternative facts, so to speak. Like, if I were to ask you in the year 2000, the presidential election, who won the state of Florida, like, W. Bush won it, but now that we have all the information, we're like, oh, Al Gore actually probably won it. In the moment in 2013, we're like, hey, Mark Gasol won Defensive Player of the Year. Now that we have all the information, we're like, oh, LeBron actually won Defensive Player of the Year that year, along with League MVP and Finals MVP, complete the trifecta. It's not on his wiki page, but we all know it should be.
Time for drawing a blank. Cowboys went out and drafted an explosive wide receiver in CeeDee Lamb this year. So explosive, in fact, Their offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore, is expected to use him in jet sweep situations, or in other words, it's going to be a ball carrier at times. Nick, the Cowboys using CeeDee Lamb in the rushing game would be blank.
Needed innovation. An underrated story of the Cowboys since Dak's been the quarterback. They have been, Warren Sharp wrote about this yesterday, one of the worst red zone and goal-to-go teams in all of football. That's despite having Ezekiel Elliott in the backfield. So, Brian, I think the new head coach there, it needs to upgrade a bit from Mike McCarthy, pardon me, forgot his name for a second, from what Jason Garrett was doing in the red zone. And if that means get CeeDee Lamb involved, I'm all for it, because that's something that's held the Cowboys back the last few years, Brian.
You're absolutely right. It is needed innovation, and I think it's going to be dynamic. Anytime you put the ball in the receiver's hands, it's hard for the defense to kind of be accountable for him and understand where he's at. It actually messes up the responsibilities and the discipline of a defense. And so if you put him on the jet sweep, he gets 10, 20 yards. Just imagine the next time CeeDee Lamb goes in motion. Now all that preparation and all the things the defense have done, now they're using their eyes and saying, hey, maybe it's a jet sweep, maybe it's something different. That's going to open up lanes for Zeke in the run game. It's also going to open up lanes, passing lanes for Dak, throwing the ball down the field to tight ends. Just look at the 49ers offense. They do this all the time, and they've been dynamic down the field. It's going to open up a lot of things for everyone on that football team.
Oh, I like that. I think it's good for Dak, too. They were 11th last year in yards after catch, and Dak can get a few more yards there with a little 1-yard pass. Boom, 20-yard. It turns out it was a 20-yard pass on the stat sheet, Jenna.
Yak, says Wilds. On to Antonio Brown, the all-pro wide receiver, seemingly decided to retire again. In fact, guys, this is apparently his third time retiring from the NFL. AB tweeting, is it time to walk away? I've done everything in the game. Nick, if AB does hang it up after all, his Hall of Fame chances are blank.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but less than 10%. Listen, from 2013 to 2018, Antonio Brown arguably had the greatest statistical 6-year run of any receiver in NFL history, including Jerry Rice. Look up the numbers. The problem is that's basically the entirety of the production for his career. Wide receivers drafted since 1980, only 10 are in the Hall of Fame. It's very difficult to make the NFL Hall of Fame, and he needed another year or two of high-level production. He's going to finish his career, if he never plays again, with fewer receiving yards than guys such as Muhsin Muhammad or Derek Mason, and fewer touchdowns than Joey Galloway. So even though he might have been the best receiver in the NFL for a full half-decade, Brian, I think he needed another year or two to put up numbers, and it looks like he's not going to get that.
You know, I disagree with you, Nick. I think his chances of getting into the Pro Football Hall of Fame eventually are very strong because of what you just mentioned. He has a strong resume. The amount of time that he played, 9 years only, and what he's been able to do, 6 straight seasons with over 100 catches and over 1,200 yards, that's impressive. 7 Pro Bowls, you're talking about 4 All-Pros. Those numbers speak for themselves. So to me, if you talk about the best receiver over the last 10 years, you have to put Antonio Brown in that category. And I think you cannot compare the numbers of players like T.O., who played 16 years, compared to what Antonio Brown has been able to do in only 9 years to each other, because T.O. played for a long time past his prime and still wanted to play even more. Antonio Brown's career has been cut short because of some of the craziness and things that he's done off the field.
Brian, I know you said we can't compare T.O. to A.B., but I think we're going to compare T.O. to A.B. and see how the numbers look. When you compare T.O. to A.B. Look, T.O. had to wait 3 years because the guy did some sit-ups in his driveway and ate some popcorn. He's got more games, and AB's got better, year-over-year averages, but the receptions are bonkers, 1,000 for T.O. The yards he's got 5,000 more yards. He's got double the touchdowns, and I know, Brian, you say you can't compare them, but I am going to compare them. T.O.'s in, he still has to wait 3 years, so if AB's going to go in, he's going to have to wait a long time.
Kevin, I think he's going to have to wait a long time, but I just think when you look at, if you double those numbers, which T.O. almost has double the amount of games, I mean, come on. I think the numbers are comparable.
But he didn't. But he's out for, bad reasons.
Yeah.
All right, on to the Patriots now. Peter King said yesterday he, quote, disagrees with those who think Cam's a lock to start opening day. Oh, let that drama begin. All right, Nick, the Patriots quarterback competition between Cam Newton and Jarrett Stidham will be blank.
Hilarious in hindsight. And I'm very surprised and I love Peter King. I'm surprised he hasn't learned his lesson on this, because it's going to be as hilarious in hindsight as reading my friend Peter King's comments in March about the Patriots signing Cam Newton. Not going to happen. Not the system fit. Not going to work. And now he's there. And now, in October, when Cam's playing well and Jarrett Stidham is holding a clipboard, we're going to say, remember those columns about who was going to be the starter? How silly do those look? So I think in hindsight, all of this speculation that Jarrett Stidham could win this quarterbacking job is going to look absolutely ludicrous.
You know, Nick, I agree with you. I think that Cam is he's a better player. I think he has been the better player. He has much more experience. But this whole debate as far as who's going to be the starter, it's health-driven. If Cam comes in there and is healthy throughout camp and the preseason, whatever they have of the preseason, there's no doubt about it. He'll be the starter. He'll be the guy. So you don't bring Cam in to be second string if he's healthy. You bring Cam in to start and help your team win if he's healthy. It's completely health-driven. Kevin, I want to remind you about Gale Sayers. Gale Sayers played for 6 or 7 years in the NFL, had a Hall of Fame career. Don't forget about that. He went off for 6 years.
He's not allowed to talk about the other topics. He's not allowed to do that.
But he just did.
Up the format. I don't have
He
my
went
research.
backwards.
Listen, I don't have a problem with this. I've got a recommendation for everybody in the audience. The Cam Chronicles on Spotify. Tyler Tynes does an excellent job outlining Cam's whole life. Episode 3, Cam goes to Blinn College. He's fresh from Florida, and guess what he has? A quarterback competition. He's not gifted the position. He has to compete for it. He's holding field goals. You know, they win the junior national championship. Then he becomes Heisman Trophy winner and the #1 overall draft pick. So Cam's done this before. He should play it out, do the competition, and I'm sure things are going to be fine for the Patriots and Cam Newton as we head to Tampa Bay.
Every pitch, every out matters so much. And the amount of intensity that these games are going to be played, even though there's no fans, like there's a lot of weight behind every pitch, because 162, I'm not saying that it's not intense and every game counts, but it's even more amplified now with these 60 games.
Mets first baseman Pete Alonso on 60 games and making them all count. Now back here, first things first with Chris Broussard. Nick, which team do you think is most set up to take advantage of what will now be a 60-game season in baseball?
I almost hate to say it, but I think it's the Astros. I know they're the least popular team in the league right now, nationally possibly, but they're not going to have to deal with hostile crowds. I think because of that, they're going to deal with less hostile opposing teams. And if it's going to come down to starting pitching, Wilds, despite losing Garrett Cole, they still have Verlander and Greinke, and Lance McCullers Jr. is back after missing all of last season. So I think this sets up very favorably for Houston Wilds.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to go with the Yankees. Aaron Judge hit 2 home runs on Sunday. Yesterday, he had another home run when there was 3 outs. You see something new every day when you watch a baseball game. Joe Girardi's like, hey, I know there's 3 outs, but let me get my guy face Aaron Judge. Aaron Judge hits a bomb out to right field, and the Phillies like, all right, I know he hit a home run, but is that it, or can we go back in the dugout? So Aaron Judge and the Yankees are going to be very successful. They can still hit home runs while there is 3 outs, Broussard.
Yeah, I've gone back and forth between the Dodgers and the Yankees. Obviously, I think the Dodgers are the deepest team, the most versatile team as far as their position players in the league. But I'm worried a little bit about the pitching staff. Obviously, Kershaw and Kenley Jansen are getting a little bit older, and they got to replace Ryu and Maeda. That's what I'm worried about. So I'm going with the Yankees as well. Wilds. Look, Aaron Judge has missed 50 or more games the last 2 years. He's only got to stay healthy for 60. He should be able to do that. And that's not to mention Giancarlo Stanton. They added Garrett Cole, obviously, to the pitching staff. And when I look at Stanton, Judge, DJ LeMahieu, and Gleyber Torres in that lineup, I like the Yankees.
You're wasting your time basketball, Broussard. You're a baseball guy at heart. Time for stories to start your morning. Starting with the Brooklyn bench boss. A recent report says Nets GM Sean Marks is interested in keeping Jacques Vaughn along as head coach. Nick, what would this mean for KD and Kyrie?
Well, it would mean they don't totally and fully already run the franchise. And I think that's what Sean Marks is trying to prevent to a degree. KD and Kyrie got Kenny Atkinson out. They got DeAndre Jordan in the starting lineup, and they want to pick the next head coach. Maybe that's good, maybe that's bad, but if Jacques Vaughn ends up becoming the head coach here, it's going to be because Sean Marks and Jacques Vaughn have a relationship dating back to San Antonio, and he thinks he will have a say in the franchise the way a GM is supposed to, Wilds.
Yeah, I'm rooting for Jacques Vaughn to make some noise down in Orlando. He's been dealt a pretty brutal hand here. Broussard, part of me thinks that the Nets are set up for a David Blatt type situation where next year, whoever that coach is going to be, if the Nets get off to a rough start, people start looking around like, how about we get rid of the coach?
Remember a few years ago, Jacques Vaughn was like the cat's meow. I like using that phrase, Nick. I've done it again. But he, then he went to Orlando and he struggled. So he was a big name at one point as far as the next big coach. So I could see Marks going with it. But I disagree, Nick, that, Kyrie, I believe, likes Jacques Vaughn. And I actually think that Durant and Kyrie would kind of have their way with Jacques. I think they're better off. Now, look, Popovich would be the dream. I don't think that happens. But that would be what they need to do. If they can't get a Popovich, which I don't think they can, I would go with Mark Jackson. I think Mark Jackson would come in and have enough authority and respect from KD and Kyrie Irving to coach them. I think being in New York, he's from New York, I think the fans would like him. I go with Jackson.
All right, moving on to a little rocket boost with Russell Westbrook reportedly joining the team down in Orlando yesterday. Broussard, back to you. What's the ceiling for the Rockets with Westbrook back?
Look, I always would give them a puncher's chance because they got two all-time greats in their prime, and they played a small ball. But let's face it, they're going out in the second round if they even get that far. The Clippers or the Lakers are who they're going to face in that second round, and they can't beat them. They cannot beat the Clippers or the Lakers if everybody's healthy. Stop it, Nick. Don't even think there.
That's amazing, because here's the thing. They've played the Clippers and the Lakers 6 times this year, and they're 3-3. So for a team that can't beat them, they did something half the times they played those teams. They played the Clippers 4 times this year. 2-2 against the Clippers, and one of those losses happened in the final 30 seconds. That Kawhi locked James Harden down in those 4 games to 32, 6, and 8 on 40% from 3. Like, this just ongoing, utter disrespect for Houston. By the way, your worst nightmare, Broussard, and it could happen. The Rockets and Clippers could be playing in the first round. That could be a 3-6 matchup if the Rockets stay where they are, and we all know the Clippers are going to be load managing this 8-game restart. So that's absolutely in play. They fall from 2 to 3, and this is the first round, Wilds.
I buy that. I didn't think about that earlier, Nick, but the Clippers are going to just worry about the playoffs and just drop down to 3. Then you got Russ. I'd be very worried about Russ, Broussard. Russ averaging 31 points and shooting 53% post Capella. I think with no fans, the people are like Russ who like self-motivate are just going to bring 100%, not affected by the crowd. I think the Rockets going to be very, very dangerous.
And real quick, I don't want to make Clipper fans nervous, but with the NBA schedule potentially having a very short offseason, I'm hearing they might load manage Kawhi in the playoffs to have him ready for next season. I can't confirm that. It's just something I'm hearing. So careful of that, too.
Played every playoff game last year. Played every one. That's unfair.
You're living under Broussard's skin right now. On to the West's best. Who, Nick? Taking something too far? For LeBron James' entire career, he's heard critics say, sure, he can do it in the East, but what about the West? Well, the King has spoken, leading the Lakers to the best record in the West this season. LeBron responding to a tweet yesterday that the East is easy and he won't do that in the West by saying this. Bro, I swear I heard that for 15 years. Nick, why is LeBron bringing this up?
Because it's true. And LeBron hears everything. Aside from during the playoffs when he's in zero dark 30 mode, he hears everything. And it was a ludicrous indictment of an unprecedented run of dominance in a conference. And by the way, it's also ahistorical to act like we haven't almost always had one conference be slightly weaker or much weaker than the other, and someone take advantage of it. In the 80s, the East was far better than the West. And guess what? The Lakers went to the finals 8 damn times that decade. In the 90s, the East was far weaker than the West. And guess what? The Bulls went to the finals 6 damn times. In the 2000s, the East has been weaker, and so it's not been a team that's gone to the finals, but LeBron has gone to the finals. But Broussard, him in his first full healthy year with the Lakers, getting the 1 seed in the West and making the finals will, I think, go a long way in disabusing folks of the notion that this was the main reason he dominated the way he did.
Yeah, I think this is so blown out of proportion because, first of all, for the bulk of LeBron's career, nobody was downplaying the East that much. Earlier in his career, you had Miami with Shaq and Wade. You had Detroit that was a great team. Yep. Then you had the Big Three in Boston. Then you had Dwight Howard in Orlando. Chicago was a tough team while the Big Three was still there with the Celtics. So up through his early years in Miami, the East was a monster. It was only really, later when he was in Cleveland his second year that people started talking about the East not being nearly as good, and it was easy for him to get to the finals. The second thing is that the talk was all getting to the finals. That's why he's going to the finals, because it's the East. It was never in relation to the MVP. Nobody said, oh, we're not giving LeBron the MVP because he did it in the East. He won all 4 of his MVPs in the East. And Derrick Rose won an MVP in the East. So that was never held against LeBron. The reason he never won an MVP his second go-round in Cleveland, because those Cavs teams never had great regular seasons. They had 1 year where they won 57 games. The other years they won 50, 51, 53, because they were coasting and building during the regular season and basically saving it for the playoffs. So this East-West notion is so overblown with the LeBron thing.
I don't know. So we went back first team All-NBA and second team All-NBA. And I said, I thought it was less about the teams and more about the players, where the good players were. And in the last 5 years, guys not named LeBron, there were 7 guys from the East and 38 from the West. And then I said, hey, Dusty, when's the last time the East had more players on the first and second team All-NBA team than the West? And Dusty said that was during the Clinton administration. Grant Hill, Jordan Penny, Pip, Glenn Rice, and Ewing were on the East. Malone, Hakeem, Gary Payton, and Mitch Richmond on the West. So it's been since I was in high school, Nick, that the East was strong. It's a valid criticism, but I don't know why LeBron doesn't lean into it. Be like, hey, not my fault. People were scared to come to the East because I was dominated. No, it worked for Tom Brady. I don't think he should, run from this criticism.
Well, and by the way, you saw in a lot of free agency decisions, guys up until recently weren't signing in the Eastern Conference because they knew that was LeBron's conference. And so, yeah, the East might not have had all the best players, but it had the best player in the league until LeBron went to the Lakers, Jenna.
Sure.
We got to go. Hey, NBA, give our guy Nick a vote, please, for all of us. Stay safe. We'll see you tomorrow, everybody.
Did a good job today.